Hello and welcome to the Daily Lawyer podcast. My name is Jana Krishnan. I am your host and the founder of the Daily Lawyer. And today's episode is in conjunction with the International Legal Alliance, or ILA. ILA is a network of independent legal professionals from across the world. There are legal professionals from over 150 countries as part of ILA. And on the podcast, we periodically feature members of the ILA to talk about their journeys in the law and then all of the other things that they want to speak. And today I have a very senior lawyer with me. I have Mr. Suhas Tuljapurkar, who is the founder and managing partner of Legasis Partners. He's also the founder and non-executive director of Legasis Services Private Limited, which provides legal technology and ancillary legal services to the industry as a whole. I've had some incredible people on the podcast in the past, but there are very few people I have met who had a bio as long as Mr. Tuljapurkar's bio. So it's going to take me an entire podcast just to read his bio. But if I have to shorten it, he was a general counsel, which means he was leading the legal operations in MNCs, in big corporations, and then he transitioned into a full-time legal career where he continues to do everything from litigation to mergers and acquisitions to joint ventures to private equity funding, infrastructure projects. He's part of so many associations, including the UN Global Compact Committee, the ILA, and the Bombay Bar, and so many others. I'm so excited to get into this conversation because we are going to be speaking to Mr. Tuljapurkar not just about his legal career, but also about legal technology and all the other ancillary services that can be provided or that is being leveraged within the legal industry today. So, Mr. Tuljapurkar, welcome to the Daily Lawyer podcast.
Okay, thank you very much, Gina. What my personal request would be, let's switch on to the first name basis. That's much better. And I think we all, legal professionals, colleagues, and more importantly, I think that makes it so much easier and simpler to.
Okay. All right. So now that I've not really taken people through your journey because it is such a long and diverse journey. So in your words, how would you, can you take everybody back to, first of all, why did you choose to become a lawyer and what has been your journey so far?
Oh yeah, thank you. Very interestingly, I'm like an accidental lawyer. Okay, it's a long story, but I'll try and summarize this. See, what happened was, I was very passionate about management, and post my graduation, I come from Aurangabad, so we moved to Pune to do post graduation in management, and I had no place to stay in. It's at that point in time, somebody recommended that ILS Law College has a very good hostel and you can get it. It's not very expensive. And I think that's why I took admission into ILS Law College. I was doing my MBA from IMDR, and at that point in time, Principal Shezwalkar's IMDR was far highly rated institute associated with one of the universities from the US. And I could then do law as well as MBA. So I got into ILS Law College because the hostel was good. And then it so happened that when we were final year of law, 84-85, I think in 84, Bhopal gas tragedy happened. And I worked extensively in the rehabilitation camps initially and subsequently worked in Bhopal to try and find out what would be the liability of Union Carbide Corporation in true sense. So I had a graduation in statistics, so I applied some statistical formula. I looked at, talked to some medical professionals and looked at how does degree of disability and intensity of affliction of gas leads to quantifiable compensation, which report was actually accepted globally. US Medical Association, EMA from London, all of them recognize our efforts. And I'm just a student passing out of law at that point in time. And I think when you get that kind of recognition, I thought maybe as an individual, you can impact far better. And deeper impact is possible as an individual professional if I choose law as a career. So while I had got a couple of on-campus job offerings from MBA, I got one offering from one NGO which was extensively promising to work on Bhopal gas tragedy, and I just left it. Since then, I've been into legal career. So started off by saying, sorry, I don't have a place to stay in Pune. Can I get a cheaper place? Got into law school.
That's fabulous. I love how, so many, if I have to say, 9 out of 10 guests on the podcast, especially lawyers, say that they are accidental lawyers or they chose law by the process of elimination. Very few of us have come into law, me included. I also chose law by the process of elimination. I think very few of us have come to law with like a very, I think things are different today, but possibly most people, at least on the podcast, have chosen law by the process of elimination. But we are very happy now that we've chosen this. We're very happy. One of the things that struck me when I was going through a LinkedIn was that you call yourself a global lawyer. Not a global, a global lawyer or a global lawyer. So what does that mean? I've never heard that phrase. I'm presuming you come up with that phrase. There's a little bit of reference to it in your LinkedIn itself, but can you tell everybody what does that mean? Because I think that ties in beautifully to what you do in your career today.
See, what happened is, during the phase 1991, as an in-house lawyer working with a company like Thermax, we got opportunities to, structure deals, work with global lawyers, and realize that we can contribute to the development of law. And I think after that, it so happened that when I was working with Enron, I think there were almost about 48 law firms, global law firms, topmost of the law firms, who were involved in that project, either from lender side or from project side. And I think interacting with them, I realized while the globalization was happening, and therefore the local jurisdictional knowledge and the global outlook into law is very critical. Just to give you an example, I think what happened was I drafted a SLP while I was working with Enron, and I can take Enron's name because it's
sorry, I'm going to cut you because you have to say to explain, because there are in the audience we have people who are not lawyers.
Okay.
So when we see SLP, it's a special leave petition that directly takes you to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, sure. So I was drafting a special leave petition against an order from a high court, and I think I took time, about a week, to draft that petition. Looking at my experiences, I think I thought I did a very good job out of it, and I kind of circulated it across the lawyers. It's at that point in time a very, very senior partner from Linklaters flew into India, and he explained to me to say that you drafted this from the point of view of Supreme Court of India, and how the judges are going to read your petition, look at it, and the contents are structured in that manner. But he said, look at the stakeholders that are going to read this document, including those 40-odd global law firms, and that is also your stakeholder and an audience. Those are your clients, and you need to make sure that your client understands it first, and then it's possible that you go across to the court, because improving that quality to address the global benchmark legal delivery is as important as understanding the local law and jurisdictional aspect of whatever you do in law. So I think that was a lesson learned for me, and from there onwards, actually, I tried to maintain the quality of all the deliverables that go out of our desk, to say that, while I have to understand who the stakeholders are, I know, for example, the judicial system, when you talk about Indian judiciary, I think because of the paucity of time and various other reasons, they may not be able to appreciate the kind of quality, but the clients are going to be, and global clients definitely will sit up and take recognition of this. So that's where this globalization dovetailed into local practice, and especially when you talk about law, I mean, everybody knows that it's the local jurisdictional legal elements that are very, very critical while you look at a global outlook. So you take any of the legal field today, which is the corporate legal field today, you will realize that few of the laws have come in, most of the critical laws have come in by virtue of our treaty obligations at a global level. They're moving towards taking a legislative initiative to a different level where I believe, for example, in taxation, I think the world looks at Indian legislations as benchmark that needs to be followed because one, we've got these as newer regulations, so we've kind of learned a lot from across the globe. But from the qualitative aspect perspective, whatever we do need to be kind of localized, so to speak. And that's why I say that my experience, I believe, is kind of this experience makes me understand what's happening at a global level and being on the top of that, as well as making sure that the jurisdictional elements are critically inputted in whatever you do. So that's why
this is a very interesting way of looking at it because we think of globalizing in the sense taking India to the world, or taking here we are like okay we have to take or adopting the world practices here. Here you're having a nice marriage of the two, where you're saying okay I need to adopt world practices, but then at the same time I need to do it in a way that fits into what is available, what is the what is the mold in India. I had a similar experience as you when you spoke about the Linklaters partner. I had a similar experience where a Queen's Counsel in England actually threw the draft that we had drafted and then proceeded to redraft it all in front of us. And that was really a wake-up call because our language is a bit pedantic and a lot in passive voice, and there's a lot of repetition because we believe, I don't know for what reason we have to repeat. And then we just, if we had a 32-page draft, it became 12 pages and it was so crisp. So there's a lot of unlearning in that, but it's a lesson well learned, and that is the only reason why I'm highlighting this one more time here is because I think our audience has a lot of young lawyers, law students who are listening in, or even mature lawyers who are listening in, and I think we are all well served to look at our the way we are doing our work and see whether we can improve, much like what you did. You took a few elements that is required and then you sort of rejig what you're doing. So it's wonderful to see that.
Sorry. On this topic, I just add one other thing, which is to say that whenever we've discussed at a global forum and talked to global lawyers and law firms, you see, one thing that stands out from Indian lawyers is they're saying, okay, Indian lawyers don't lack in brilliance in coming to the conclusion, but consistency in the quality is always a question mark. So that's another kind of a fundamental at a global level that we need to realize. We are brilliant, okay? If we are challenged, as all Indian lawyers, when you challenge them, they come out brilliantly. But to maintain that tempo, that quality as a matter of routine and consistently delivering that quality is where the world looks at us different.
What do you think? Why do you think that is true? Like, what do you think we lack quality? Because if there's stuff, why is the consistency not there? What do you think?
So it's like when we are challenged, you see, we deliver. Okay, but on the routine matters, okay, I think the lawyers, especially most of the lawyers, tend to ignore the routine getting perfected. You see, because it's considered to be a very intellectual profession, so to speak. I mean, it's more like saying that there's always intellectually challenging issues when you talk about legal profession, and you want to excel there. Consistently getting your quality benchmarked at that level is difficult. Secondly, our legal education in India does not follow what globally is called as IRAC principle. So the reasoning, application of mind, understanding the facts being applied to rule of law, and then coming to the conclusion is a matter of process. See, we are saddled with so many matters in a day. We are saddled with huge backlog of cases. So the volume actually drags us to say that we will come to the conclusion straight away and deal with the matter. I think that is another kind of a reason why you don't find consistency in the quality of what we deliver at a global level.
Yeah, I hear you. Because I think if we processize a lot of things, today we don't work. And I know what you mean when you say that we don't always work with process. Not to say that everybody does it, but mostly we don't always work with process. We get excited when we have a challenge, and then you give your all to that matter. But then when it is something that you've done like 50 times or something, you're like, okay, whatever.
That's right.
So I know what you mean. I'm very interested in knowing about what the Legacy Services Private Limited does, because when it comes to ancillary legal services, technology in law, how you can leverage technology in law, and how you can give a better output to clients and generally the world in general. I think that is one field that I don't know much about, and we haven't had too many people come and speak about that. So, if you can just take us through what does that arm do, and how do you think technology can be leveraged in the law?
Yeah, so what happened and how this got developed is, it was again somewhere in 86, 87 that I was working with this not-for-profit organization.
Yeah, that's pretty early, huh?
That's very early. And
Yeah.
there, you see, I had a diploma in computer management as well. So I had learned what that time was popular as a D-based language of putting some code together and creating a database. So there were about 400 odd environmental cases as precedents coming from Supreme Court. So I played around with my knowledge on the database and created a searchable database of those 400 odd cases. Okay. And at that point in time, I was interacting with various legal luminaries, including Dr. Upendra Bakshi, who we had interacted. You see, and he liked the idea of saying that, oh, this is easily available. We can do the searches far better. Because that time, even online searches were not available. And
computers only were not there, so forget the internet and all of that.
Yeah. So that was at the back of my mind all through my career. So when we started Legasis, earlier it was known as Legasis Services Private Limited, we now are focusing on giving solutions to the client. So it's Legasis Private Limited now, focusing on systems and integrated solution. So when I formed Legasis, I think I realized that the technology can play a pivotal role. We started off by saying, can we offer at a global level LPO kind of services as the process outsourcing as the back office? Because at that point in time, there were some reports from NASCOM and other agencies talking about how the future of legal process outsourcing is. And based on whatever my experiences with Enron and during that period while dealing with GE, Bechtel, all of that, I realized that there is possibility of using technology. And we developed a software under the guidance and aegis of one Dr. Desai. Okay, Dr. Desai actually is the person who was 1974 postgraduate in computer sciences in Germany. He was visionary. Wow. In fact, he taught computers to the names that are today known as remarkable names in the computer industry, in the software industry. His students kind of created Shivasoft, went and doubted into Microsoft eventually. So he was guru actually, and I worked with him in developing a software solution that would simplify a complex legal proposition and tell the junior most of the associates what to do. Once that comes in, you control the quality and you actually control the delivery. And that was the job tracking tool and the software that we created. Come 2008, LPOs were not going anywhere. I was lucky to understand this too early in the process. And we said, why can't we develop software for supporting legal functions and for supporting the GCs? Not really going across to the practicing lawyers, but focusing on the GC function. And that's where we came out with what could be the areas which will have a global appeal, which will again be required under local laws, and where the repetitive knowledge can be reused to ensure that you don't pay high prices to somebody. But that's how the software that we had developed as a job tracking tool for in-house function, we kind of converted into a solution for the clients. And we looked at what the areas would be, and we had the challenges coming from, like for example, Mrs. Anwaga mentioned to me once saying that I don't want to pay a single rupee bribe to anybody in my ecosystem, if SEBI listing obligations tell us that we need to be compliant with all laws, I want to comply with all laws. And I think that's where the compliance management solution, it's something that we developed in-house on the IT side as well as the domain side. So that's where I think we had some very, very marquee clients who supported us during this period to say that, okay, you should learn from every client. And we learned, and we kind of created Legatrix as the solution. Legatrix today is being used by almost about 2,500 companies in India. It captures almost 24% of BSE market cap on the listed entities, where the companies rely on compliance with all laws. And I think we haven't looked back. We developed almost about 16 other solutions today. There's litigation management, there's contract management solution. We do performance evaluation through software solutions. So there are almost about 16 solutions, include management of intellectual properties, capture of innovation, all of that. And I think since 2008 till now, it's been an interesting journey that we've got. I'm lucky to have excellent team that translates the vision and executes it in coming out with a solution. The latest solution that we kind of created was related party transaction solution. One of our clients came back and said, we are struggling on the related parties, and we knew we were tracking these laws as updates. So we knew the challenge. So we looked around across. We said, if there is already some solution, why should we replicate it? We did do that, but we didn't find any solution. So within a matter of almost 4 weeks, we came out with a solution on related party transaction. Still, it's the only one kind of a solution that's available in India today. And I think we are gaining a lot of grounds on supporting clients on the very critical.
What that was supposed to do when it comes to related party transactions? Because we do have a lot of business owners as our listeners who are small business owners. So often they have related parties as directors or completely innocently. So what does the solution do?
It actually looks at, let's understand who are the related parties in your, first thing is creating that repository. If you look at relatives as defined under the Companies Act, I think there is a mess there. Okay. Plus each of those directors and KMPs, where they are partners, where they are directors, common directors, all of that. So it creates first the repository of all related party transactions. And in this, we use technology to pick up the data from MVP1, where every year you will have to disclose the interest. Every director has to disclose the interest. Then we cross-check with some other parameters which are available in the public domain information to give confidence to the client that all relatives and all related parties are captured in the process. And then we look at the thresholds to say, like, learning again from the law firm, whatever we do when a conflict check comes in. So we say, okay, if these are contracts where the threshold is getting breached, okay, we'll send a conflict check across all related parties to understand whether the prior approval is required or not. Then we broke down the law in terms of micro level tasks, like what are the thresholds? I mean, if you are saying that it's an arm's length transaction during the normal course of the business of the company, then it goes only up to the audit committee, which is a recording element. There is no further approvals required, but the reporting has to happen at the audit committee level. So we broke down the law, created the task, created the workflow to the extent today that related party transaction, the first draft of the disclosure that you want to make is automated in the system. In the process, we integrated through APIs. We integrated SAP and other ERP solutions and actually pick up a data from SAP itself. So manually, there is very little that somebody has to do, because
this sounds like a very good solution for small businesses, small or sort of micro, mid-sized businesses, because they often don't know, without realizing, they may be in contravention to the law. Is this, in terms of affordability, or is this something that can be targeted towards small and micro business levels?
See, currently, what happens is the threshold for related party transactions is 10 crore and above. The small and medium businesses do not have this quite often coming. Although when it comes to directors and the kind of common directors and related parties of director, threshold is 1 crore, director and DLP. But at the organizational level, since the thresholds are this 10 crore and plus, I think large companies where the transactions are multiple transactions that they have to tackle, including if you've taken an omnibus approval, whether the omnibus limits are exhausting, not exhausting, automated alerts come from our system, etc. So I think by its design, the law today caters to 10 crore or 1 crore as threshold. Small and medium may not require this as related parties, but I think therefore it's not a need for them, because maybe there are one or two transactions when they're talking about SMEs or small and medium companies or mid-cap as well, but those are not, there are few transactions for them to
can be handled with the current way that they are handled with the CA and so on. Okay, lovely. I wanted to talk to you about generally leveraging AI, because spoke a lot about leveraging technology, and all of the questions that I wanted to ask you around that, I think you sort of answered it quite beautifully with your examples. But while you were talking, I was thinking about AI, because you're so forward thinking when it comes to technology. I'm sure you have managed, you've thought about, and how AI will influence law, because there's so much of confusion, so much of fear. People will lose their jobs. AI will start drafting. Ask ChatGPT to draft your contracts. Don't go to a lawyer and so on. So yeah, but what do you have to say about that?
Okay, so you see, the first thing is that let's put the steps moving towards AI correctly. Okay. Now, when we have database, today we have 3,75,000 tasks under 1,700 laws that apply to the business on compliance side. Okay. We are working at a data level when I talk the database. Right. We need to move to the next level, which is information. From data, move to information. And what is that information? So for a particular business, if I'm in the aviation sector, what are the laws that would apply to me out of this database is relevant for me? So the applicability analysis for moving from data to information based on the repetitive nature of the data is something which the technology can do. And today, the structure of database that we have at the back end is such that if you tell me I'm into aviation business, at the click of buttons, maybe a couple of clicks there, we will be able to give you exact list of what you need to compliance if you are in aviation sector. That's moving from data to information. From information today, we need to move to knowledge level. It's fine that you know now what is the compliance information that is applicable to you, but why should you be complying? The understanding of that knowledge today is important. Okay, so and therefore, where does the lawyering come in? Where does the core lawyer's function come in? Is application of that knowledge to a given facts and circumstances, and that application is where we all need to work. We need to work as lawyers at the knowledge application level. So the searches will happen. It is simple service level architecture that will give you these results. People talk about even service level architecture, they talk about it as AI, which is fine. I don't quarrel with that. But in true sense, it's not artificial intelligence. So what we really need to understand is what's happening on the generative artificial intelligence today. The ChatGPT 4s and 5 is being in the anvil. What has happened till now, how the progression has taken place, let's understand that. Okay. AI, all AIs are weak, including, I would say, the generative AIs are very weak AIs. They're not very strong. What is an artificial intelligence if somebody were to kind of look at the theory part of it? It should be an intelligence that helps you in decision making. And here, when we apply it to the legal profession, are we saying that the legal deliveries and its outcome will be better, will be faster, will be cheaper? I think that is the eventual frontier and the goal there. Whether you talk about online mediation, whether you talk about online dispute resolution, online courts happening, you see, having a video call and doing a digital hearing is matter of communication and delivery of communication. Where does the technology need to take you is actually, are you then saying that the justice delivery system is effective, becomes more effective, more qualitative, and it's affordable. I think now where we are and where this objective insofar as profession is concerned, if we were to look at that, then I would say in the short term, generative AI is blown out of the proportion. Okay, in a sense. Sorry.
You think it is overestimated?
It's overstated. I won't say estimated. I would say it's overstated in the short term. In the long run, it is understated. And I'll tell you why. Because the speed with which developments are happening at various levels. For example, we are trying to develop a kind of a link with generative AI to make sure that prompts are properly done. In fact, there is a course now on prompts engineering, which is trying prompt engineering. So we are saying that can we therefore use this? Like us, I'm sure there are hundreds and thousands and lakhs of people today are saying that we need to use generative AI for various purposes. So if I were to second guess based on some global data that is happening, they are saying it is 30 lakh times faster development on the technology today that's happening on the generative AI. Now, somebody can challenge it, but I think what is important message is that it's a staggering speed with which this develops. So what I'm saying is, in terms of it being short-stated in the long run, that long run could become short run very soon. So that's development is happening. You see, therefore, as a professional lawyer, you can't ignore these developments today. You will be sacked. There are no barriers, like the language is not a barrier for this technology. Like your language and your English grammar is not a barrier for it. It will correct your grammar. It will give you drafts which are far better drafts. How we use it is important. One, keep in mind, got to use this as a knowledge application. That's where the profession needs to move. Not merely data research, not merely copy paste. That's not going to work out. So what we are seeing is that the days of copy paste will get over very soon, because generative AI would probably sit in your Word document. Okay, that's where I think
that doesn't seem very far away.
No, it's not. The developments are happening in that direction. Therefore, as a lawyer, if this is part of the Word, where do you move and where do you give insights as a professional? And that's where I would say you will still have to look at, can you then reduce the cost of legal profession? Can you make it more affordable? Can you make it more outcome based from a client's perspective? And more importantly, can we look at a consistent quality? In this process, from now till going there as the outcome based solutions, we need to get ethics and regulatory aspects right. So there's a lot of work that's happening on the ethical front.
It's clearly a conversation by itself, because while you still have so many more questions and tangents that I'd like to discuss this particular conversation in, but unfortunately we have limited time. So and this is an episode in collaboration with ILA. So I do want you to speak a little bit about ILA as well. What has your experience been? What do you think of ILA? How has it sort of benefited you? What you have to say about that?
So You see, ILA is a completely different kind of network. I have been associated with various legal professionals network, and ILA stands out on various fronts. One, there is no individual or group agenda there except saying, as a professionals, we need to exchange notes, gain more knowledge, and become more aware of what's happening. I think that on that score, I think this network scores much, much better than most of the networks, because most of the networks are geared up to say that, can I look at this network and leverage it for getting more work out of that? Although I won't call this as business, but it's a profession. But can I then? But ILA doesn't focus on that. At the same time, you see, if I'm struggling to get a reference for a lawyer in Bhubaneswar, all I need to do is post a couple of lines to say I need somebody there. And through referencing the lawyer that you will get in these places, or any place where you don't know anybody, you will be a far, far better lawyer and far, far better reference. The third, and I think we've been experiencing this, you've been part of the network, and you have realized, for example, I don't have a precedent of something. I don't have a precedent of a co-production agreement in a marketing space. I just have to say it on the ILA network, saying, do you has somebody worked on this? Can somebody guide me? I think you will get about half a dozen DMs out of it.
Private messages.
So,
True.
And it therefore is driven by knowledge, for knowledge. There's no other agenda there, but to say that as a profession we need to enrich ourselves. So I think from that perspective it stands out. Of course, almost every one of us there, including you, we are like-minded people. Okay, because those who are looking at network as to develop their profession, get more money and revenue, are not part of that network. They can't be there. They generally don't want to be, and they're not there. Okay, it's simply amazing how this has been set up. Thanks to Mr. Jamshed, initiative. I think it is phenomenal.
Yeah, I have nothing more to add because you said it so beautifully. But just one last question to close out this chapter, and I asked the last section. Because you've had so much of global exposure, and this is something I really like to ask all the guests who come in. Because you have had so much global exposure, you have the idea of the shortcomings in our profession, in our country, like the Indian legal profession, and then the good things. So what would you say are some of the advantages of our profession and some of the things that we can improve on, each one of us in our own way can contribute to that maybe, but what are some of the things if you have to list it down?
You see, so actually what's likely to happen is that there's more of a globalization, more of a borderless issues that are coming up. Just take GDPR as an example. I think data privacy regulation that's starting up in the Europe. Each of the jurisdiction is now catching up, including India, which has come out with its own DPR. The Data Privacy Act has been notified now. So it's understanding that at a global level and how the world moves in is very important for every lawyer. I may be practicing in a taluka court today, but I think the precedential value of the judgments coming from Supreme Court, which in turn may be influenced by foreign judgments, is because we have adopted stare decisis as a principle. It's very important for us to understand. Many a times it does happen that when you're trying to find out legal contentions, when you're trying to find out the grounds, when you're trying to look at how the arguments and counter arguments need to shape up, many a times your fact may be similar or closer to fact of the case that might have taken place in Gulf or in Africa, and you don't find similar factual cases here. But this is where I think the law or the application of laws and principles of law become borderless. You look at professions such as intellectual property, when you're saying that whether my trademark is similar to anyone else, you're not only looking at Indian trademark registry, you're actually saying, is there anything where somebody has come out with? Because cross-border reputation of a trademark, whether registered or unregistered, is recognized, and therefore there could be a passing of action against you. So you got to understand at global level what's happening, whether it is patent industry, whether it is newer legislation such as data privacy or tax and fiscal legislation that are coming. So it's very, very important for every lawyer who wants to be successful to understand the global paradigm. And I think that's where I would say that it's essential for all of us, for all legal professionals to have that knowledge. Then you can apply that knowledge.
Yeah, I hear you. So essentially, we look a little above ourselves and then look around, learn, and then continue to apply. I like your word glocalization. So we should.
Thank you.
We should like. So this is the end of the the legal part of the podcast. The last part of the podcast is something I do for myself because I just love listening to the answers. So it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I have 5 of something, 4 of something, 3 of something like that. So to start with, can you give us 5 productivity tips? Because you do so many things, I'm sure you have these. So 5 productivity tips. It could be apps because you're so tech savvy. It could be apps. It could be anything, whatever you use.
So productivity tips I would say is that time management is the most critical element in our profession, and how do you manage your time is something that is very, very important, and therefore how do you delegate it? You see, and I think most of the time I have sensed and realized quite a few lawyers are very fastidious about not delegating, and I think that's one thing that we need to learn if we were to look at productivity area, because that's an area where it's important that you free up time to do your core activities and what you like. The second area is, of course, use of technology and various apps which are there, but more importantly, understanding for what use you are going to use the technology. In a sense, what is the end use? You want to do a research? Probably yes, it's a good thing to do. You want to draft pleadings? Probably it's a good guidance to get. But if you are saying, like most of the people now are thinking that generative AI will draft pleadings for them, it's not going to happen. Okay, you need to understand what and how you want to use the generative AI. You see, therefore, use of technology is again a very, very important thing. The third thing is that, and I think you need to take short breaks. You need to look at short vacations. You need to look at extended weekends, because balancing your thought process or continuously, if you are thinking about anything and everything, it becomes very, very difficult. And the fifth element I would say, which I personally follow, and I get up at about 3:34 in the morning and work for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on how critical the work is. Because otherwise, during the day, you don't get time to work for yourself. Whether it is analyzing a document, whether it is doing your own research, whether it is actually saying that I need to be aware, I need to do some reading, or deliver my own legal deliveries. Because through the day, what tends to happen is that you'll get phone calls, clients will keep calling up, there will be your juniors who want your time, and you're always stressed. You don't get focused time for yourself. So what is known as Brahma Muhurta, the early morning kind of a time, is very...
I was just going to say that you're like utilizing Brahma Muhurta properly. My husband is like you. He wakes up very early, but we are all not in that category. I see the advantage actually, because I've seen it. I see it every day. So I know one day we will be like you.
No. I know quite a few of the lawyers who work late hours.
Yeah, same thing. You just stay out 3 hours for yourself.
It's just that personally I can't do that. I can't stay awake beyond, let's say, 10:30.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, there's a transaction where all-nighter is required, then of course we follow the sleep.
Yeah, those are outliers, so those don't factor, but in everyday scenario.
Absolutely.
Okay, 4 books. Sorry, do you want to say something?
Please.
4 books that you would recommend.
Oh, I think as a lawyer, I was very fascinated during my college days with a lot of classics.
Mm.
So, Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment,
Mm.
Franz Kafka's The Trial are the two books that stand out. You see, of course, Alchemist is another book that everybody should read it. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
And importantly, I would say that Khalil Gibran's Prophet is another book that's all-time favorite.
Yeah.
What I liked about Gulshan's thoughts is the difficulty of being. That's an analysis of life with today's situations and circumstances. It's an amazing book. That's
Yeah. I read it. This is the second time that somebody has recommended this particular book on the podcast, and I haven't read. It, so maybe that will go on my list of to read. But the rest I agree with, all the other four that you said. Okay, 3 tips that you have for young lawyers or for students.
For students, you see, one thing that you need to today understand is that the availability of information is all pervasive. You have a deep information available, you have data and information at your fingertips. So there is a level playing field. You got to get your confidence, and you got to then move from that information to knowledge. So it's available today. I think lucky that the students are in this age, because in my times, I mean, in older times, now I'm almost 60 plus, so I can say in our times, searching law was a skill that each one of us required to have. I mean, you look up to a
mark with highlighter, go at this. So of course, I think that was beautiful also, no? Because there was so much you would read and go to the High Court library and try and take out ye volume nahi hai, So it was very nice.
So it's available now. Make the full use of it, because your knowledge level today is as good as anyone else's. So long as you have the in-depth understanding and you're kind of willing to make that for yourself. Which gives to the second issue, which is, I think there is no substitute to it.
Yeah.
And I think therefore you need to work hard, and you need to work hard. You see, now whatever you do, you need to be working very, very hard with sincerity. And the last thing I would focus on is passion. Try and understand what your niche is. Try and understand what your passionate area is. Because if you're not passionate about, let's say, intellectual property law, right? And you will end up doing criminal laws because you're passionate about IP, but you're focusing there. You won't be as successful as you would otherwise be if you work in the area which is your passion. And that's where you can expect to create a niche. And I think you need to look at the benchmark of that niche to say that in this element, I should be the best. And I think that is only possible if you have passions. So I would say passion is very, very critical and important.
Yeah, lovely. I think I loved your first point. That's a very unusual point that no one has said this. Hard work, though, everybody, that's something that everybody has encouraged students to do. 2 life lessons that you have learned in your life so far, in this life.
Oh, that's a tough one. No. You see, very clearly, your mindset is your biggest problem. You see, therefore, if you try to reach out to somebody in the profession, and I must tell you this example, that experience that I've had. I had briefed Mr. Ramjet Malani in a matter, right? And he had taken a retainership. This was Enron matter. Okay, we worked very closely. We strategized various things, and it so happened that post whatever happened with Enron, I mean, everybody knew that few of us were not even being paid because vendors had taken over the account. And I just bumped into Ram sir and I wished him at the airport. And he took me aside and he said, Suhas, I understand that Enron hasn't paid salaries to people. Okay. If this, anyway, you are into financial stress, let me know. Out of the retainer that Enron has given me, I'll pay you back.
How sweet.
It was such an amazing experience. Now, I mean, Ram sir was where he was. I was like a junior guy. But therefore I am saying in this profession, the profession has given so much back. You need to kind of reach out. You need to seek help. You need to make sure that there are no inhibitions and hindrances in your mindset. Because many a times, I think, whenever, and I have experienced this myself, and that's where this is lessons learning, I think, okay, probably I should do this, that, and that, but I don't reach out to do that because of some reason. Maybe it's paucity of time at times. At times, it's just your mindset that, how can I do this? And then you find someone else has already done it. Yeah. Then you start repenting, saying, why did you not do this?
Yeah.
You see, that I think is one of the very, very
big life
lessons. The second again, I'll again give you this example where it so happened that I was advising an engineering company, right? And this was the days when mobile phones were not there, emails were not so prominent, and there was a problem at a project site in interiors. So this project manager and we had a strategic meeting with his boss, who was general manager, and I think it was decided that all the correspondence would be weighted by legal. So it would come on my desk for me to verify. And this project manager had gone at the site to meet the representatives, and he was drawing out minutes of the meeting. So he called me up from there to say that I'm now forced to give these minutes of the meeting, and this is what I'm doing. Just tell me over the phone whether I'm right or wrong, because communication was very hard. Period. And I guided him. I corrected a couple of sentences, and then I wrote like typical any in-house lawyer would say, or even outside counsel would say. I said just write a couple of lines at the bottom to say that whatever I have stated is without prejudice to our rights and contentions, and I said close your document. Right. So he did that. He was very happy. Right. And he came back and he kind of showed me the document. He said, this is what I've done. You told me, I was very happy. So whatever I've written on the top, there is a caveat below. So we are protecting our company's right. Great. Now, when I read the document, to everybody's shock and dismay, instead of saying without prejudice, he wrote with all the prejudice to our rights and contention. Now, what do you do? Is it because of the phone, he understood it to mean with all.
So then, oh my God. So communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ask him to read it again. Before signing. Get that right. That was a life lesson. Absolutely.
Yeah, real life lesson. That is good. Oh God, real life lesson. Okay, and final question is, what is the best piece of advice that you have received?
Be humble. Okay. Be a good human being first. And don't compromise with your profession. If you are saying you are a professional lawyer, your loyalty is to your profession. Don't compromise on your profession. Notwithstanding any conflicts that would come in the way. Okay, you have your loyalty towards your family, but if you are professional, your loyalty towards profession comes first. And I think that's the lesson that I've learned.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. It was such a lovely conversation, and I have so many other tangential questions. So maybe we should do a part 2 only about AI and the law, because that is one thing I feel we really did not scratch the surface. So, but it was wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.